Have you ever looked at a massive, super complex project, like a new skyscraper or a power plant, and just wondered, how on earth does that not collapse into total chaos? Well, the secret isn't just about having great managers. It's actually a hidden system, kind of like a universal language that keeps every single person on the same page. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and look at this system, the Project Code of Accounts. Let's dive in and see how this thing brings order to the madness. So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at what happens when projects don't have this system. Spoiler, it's chaos. Then we'll introduce the Code of Accounts as the solution, this universal language. We'll peek under the hood to see what's actually inside the code, see how it's structured to make sense, and finally, we'll get to the real payoff, the incredible power of getting everyone to speak the same project language. All right, let's start with the problem, the chaos of uncoded projects. I mean, the title says it all, right? It's what happens when everyone is speaking a different language. And honestly, industry experience shows us time and time again that when projects don't have a common system, you get poor communication. And that is a direct line to project failure. I want you to think back for a second. Maybe it was a school project, maybe a small task at work. You know that feeling, right? One person's tracking things in a notebook, someone else has a spreadsheet with totally different categories, and the third person is just, keeping it all in their head. It's a mess. It's frustrating. Now, just try to imagine that same chaos, but scaled up to $1 billion project. Yikes. And that chaos, it has a very, very real cost. Without a standard system, your contractors can't figure out how to match their numbers to yours. Your meetings turn into endless arguments about whose report is the right one. You try to learn from a project you did 5 years ago, but the data is completely useless because it was tracked differently. You can't benchmark against your peers, and heaven forbid your company merges with another, you are looking at months of headaches trying to convert all that data. It's just a complete recipe for disaster. So, how do we fix all this? Well, that brings us to Section 2. Let's introduce the hero of our story, the Code of Accounts, or what you'll often hear called the COA. This is the tool that was specifically designed to bring order to all that chaos we were just talking about. Okay, so what is this thing really? A Code of Accounts is basically a super organized index for a project. You can think of it like the Dewey Decimal System for a library, but for project information. It's a master list of codes, and each code points to something specific, a cost, a resource, an activity. The whole point is to make all that information dead simple to find, to sort, and to manage for everybody. The source material puts it perfectly here. It calls the COA a communication tool that's just like a language. And that's exactly right. It has a structure, kind of like grammar, and it has a dictionary that tells you exactly what every single term means. And when everybody on the project speaks this language, poof, the confusion just vanishes. Okay, so if it's a language, what is it, talking about? That brings us to Section 3. What's actually inside the code? Let's break down the core ingredients of this project language. What's pretty amazing is just how much stuff a COA can track. And this goes way beyond just dollars and cents. It actually links accounting info, like cost types, to geographical info, like which site office we're talking about, to physical things, like a specific product, to resources, activities, and even timing. It's really the connective tissue that holds all the project data together, turning all these little isolated facts into one big coherent picture. Now, the number one ingredient, the one you'll find in almost every single COA, is discipline or commodity. This is basically the type of work being done. So think of it as grouping all the costs for, say, electrical work in one bucket and all the costs for piping in another. This is absolutely crucial because it lets you analyze the performance and productivity of different teams and trades across the whole project. And the second main ingredient is cost type. This one is huge for accounting. It answers a simple question: what are we spending money on? Is it labor, materials, a subcontractor? This lets the finance team clearly see where the money's going and, really importantly, separate the owner's costs from the contractor's costs. So we have our ingredients, right? Things like discipline and cost type. But how do you put them together so they make sense? Well, let's jump to Section 4 and look at how we structure this for clarity. The blueprint for our common language. A typical code might look something like this. And I know, at first glance, it just looks like a random string of numbers and letters. But it's not random at all. It's actually a hierarchical key. Each little chunk of the code tells you something different. The first block might be the project number, the next is the specific area, then the main account or discipline, then the activity, and finally the cost type. It's like a logical street address for every single piece of data in the project. Now, when you're building these codes, you have a choice. You can go with just numbers, or you can mix in letters, which we call alphanumeric. Numeric codes are simple, they're clean, but you only get 10 options for each digit, 0 through 9. Alphanumeric, on the other hand, is way more flexible. It gives you 36 options per character and lets you make intelligent codes, like using ENG for engineering. The only downside? You can get some confusion between characters that look alike, like the letter O and the number 0. And the power of that choice becomes super obvious when you look at the raw numbers. With just a 3-digit numeric code, you get 1,000 possible combinations. Not bad. But with a 3-digit alphanumeric code, that number explodes to over 46,000 combinations. This scalability is what lets a single, well-designed system handle everything from a tiny office reno to a gigantic international project. Okay, this brings us to our final and most important section, the power of standardization. Why is it such a big deal for everyone across different projects, departments, even different companies to use the same structure? This right here is the ultimate payoff. This is where a code of accounts goes from just being about record keeping to being a massive strategic asset. Now, you might be thinking, standardization sounds impossible. Every project is unique. But here's the fascinating thing. An analysis of 28 different codes of accounts found that a core set of elements, what we're calling primary characteristics, like discipline and cost type, are used in more than 75% of all projects. So the foundation for a standard system is already there. It's totally achievable. And when you do it, the benefits are huge. With a standard COA, confusion just plummets and accuracy skyrockets. You can roll up data from 10 different projects into one master report. Easy. Training new people becomes so much simpler. And your historical data? It transforms from a dusty old archive into a goldmine that helps you make way better estimates and schedules for the future. Ultimately, your reports become more credible, your forecasts get more accurate, and your entire operation just runs better. So, I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Think about your project or your whole organization. Are you guys just spending money and tracking it in a dozen different ways, or is everyone, from the accountant in the office to the engineer out on the site, truly speaking the same language? Because that difference, right there, that's often the real key to success.